Today I had my student dialogue in the in Weaver at 9 a.m. this morning, and it was on race. It was very interesting. We had a good mix of people from different ethnic backgrounds, so that was fitting for our discussion. Um, we had people who talked quite a bit. There was one boy who's a chemical engineer major, I remember, who talked all the time. Smart kid. He said smart things. There were people who never talked. I was kind of right in the middle. Talked a good bit, read some. Not too much, not too little. Just right. I think dialogue is very important in our university so we can get to know the real people, who someone really is, and not assume things about them. So today we started off playing the name game, get to know each other, said our name, our major, where we're from, and an interesting fact about each other. And then we split up into pairs, and our task was to say to the other person, to our partner, things that we assumed about them. Like, I assume that you are not from South Carolina, or I assume that Clemson was your first choice, or I assume you're athletic, I assume you have a sibling, and the other person would say yes or no. That's incorrect about me. You're right. That does describe me. And it was very interesting to see how a lot of things we assumed weren't necessarily correct. And this shows us that, just judging people by what they look like, assuming things about them are often wrong, and we're not really getting the real person out of what we assume. So oftentimes we could assume, well, hey, that person's can't be, there's no way I could be friends with them because, she doesn't look athletic. But in reality, if you get to know them, y'all could be best friends. So this taught us not to assume, but to try to meet people for who they are on the inside. Our next activity was the instructors had 7 posters taped around the room, and each poster had a different country on it, or continent, I guess a different continent, different area of the world. There was Africa, Asia, Canada, U.S., Latin America, Europe, Australia, and we'd go around in groups of probably 6 or so and write on the poster of that given continent, what came to mind first when we saw that. And so for countries like for Africa, for example, people always wrote things that had to do with being black, being poor, child soldiers, just real negative things, when in reality Africa is not all negative at all. There's great wildlife. Not all people in Africa are black. South Africa is predominantly white. Egypt. So our stereotypes are often wrong. Child soldiers are only in certain parts of Africa. There is greatness in Africa. And so oftentimes we stereotype and we get things wrong. And so this is bad because we shouldn't stereotype, because we're not getting the true image, the true correct thing out of what we're looking at. So this was very interesting. I was taken back as for U.S. the words that came up were selfish, rich, overweight, which is true. Snobby, and that is I took it as slightly offensive. And it taught me that, you can offend people easily by assuming things about them. So this is a great exercise, as we could kind of see what we thought of each country. We taught about how we learned about how we need to trust different people and trust people that they'll do the best that they can also. Our instructors were very keen on us being trusting other people and not assuming things about them based on their outside, but really trying to get to know them. Um, and we also talked about when debating to challenge ideas rather than the actual person. We did a little exercise about we split up into 3 groups, and one group had to debate about a topic, one had to discuss about a topic, and one had to talk about how that topic related to the community. And it was interesting to see the differences between debating and discussing. Where debating, you're trying to bring the other person onto your side, saying that they're wrong, you're right. While discussing, y'all can both agree, but you think there's a better choice. So it was interesting examining the difference between debating and discussing. So the student dialogue today was a great success as we learned about race, not judging, not falling under stereotypes, and really trying to get to know people and communities and things like that. So it was a good success.